Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions.
That cover's so awesome.
This is Mr. Chris Claremont, a legend.
Melanie goes,
Tired.
Hey, all you Minties, Uncanny Omar here from Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions, and join me today for your advanced look at the Devil's Reign Omnibus from Marvel Comics. So let's go ahead and get started. Before getting started, I do want to thank David Gabriel and the fine folks at Marvel for sending us an advanced copy of this omnibus. This omnibus is due out everywhere, direct market and book market, on January 9th or 10th, depending on where you get your books. And what we're looking at here is the standard edition cover, the one that's going to be available everywhere, and this is by Marco Cicchetto. On the left-hand side is your direct market cover by In-Hyuk Lee. That one will only be available at places like your local comic book store or cheapgraphicnovels.com, waltzcomicshop.com, Reed's Comics, comicsbugles.com, Dying Breed Collectors, In-Stock Trades, Organic Price Books, Tales of Wonder, and DCBS, places like that. Now, let's shift the focus back to this, since everything underneath the dust jacket is the same. So we do have the cover here by Cicchetto, who was the artist on the limited series. Zdarsky, Cicchetto, De La Torre, a Marvel Event, Devil's Reign. And before I look at the spine, I did want to take note that this framing is something they've been doing recently for a lot of their events. Like here is the Judgment Day Omnibus with a similar frame. I mean, it's a different design, of course, but it does have a frame around it. And it gives it maybe like a classier look, perhaps. And these stories that are collected in here have been previously collected in, of course, single issues and a series of trade paperbacks with that same design on the frame. So let's take a closer look at the spine here. So you have Marvel Omnibus, Devil's Reign, Zdarsky, Cicchetto, De La Torre, DR for the actual logo of Devil's Reign, and then of course Daredevil right there. And then the story that's been building for years is finally here, DR, and then some frames from actual panels from inside the book. The retail price, what's collected in here. The retail price is $100, by the way. And of course I'm going to be asked the question, where do I keep this? Well, for me, this is an event omnibus, so I'm just going to keep it in alphabetical order. I'm sure some people, most people, will probably put it with their Daredevil Omnis. Underneath the dust jacket, let's actually look here at the flaps. On the left-hand side is a little bit about what Devil's Reign is, and on the right is the bio on Chip Zdarsky and Marco Cicchetto, as well as Rafael de la Torre. And this is what it looks like underneath the dust jacket. So pretty interesting that they decided to put a spine here. This spine design, instead of just having the wraparound image. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, and I'm not sure what is the reasoning behind why sometimes. Now, I am going to be mentioning what is essential reading before reading this, and how much double dipping it's going to do with the Daredevil by Chip Zdarsky Volume 2. And of course, I have to talk about some spoilers, but it's mainly because of the premise, where we are during this time of Daredevil. But I'll let you know ahead of time when I'm about to talk about those. Alright, let's crack this book open. Okay, let's go ahead and crack this book open. Here are your end sheets, and the Kingpin there, Devil's Reign, and then the credits. Not so much so the table of contents or telling you where to find each of these stories, but the credits as to who these creators are. And if you don't want any spoilers and you just want to know about the mapping, this is the way that it is mapped. So you have Devil's Reign, and then you have the Villains for Hire, then you have Woman Without Fear. So that is something that I know some people wanted to know, like, how is this mapped? It is mapped like a series of trade paperbacks put together. And I'll be going a little more in depth as to what that means exactly. Just didn't want to go into spoilers yet. And maybe like what I think should have been put in between a couple of these Devil's Reign issues. All right, let's talk about what's collected in here first. So this collects Devil's Reign 1 through 6. Let's go back to this so nothing's spoiled. Spider-Woman 18 through 19. Daredevil Woman Without Fear 1 through 3. Devil's Reign Superior 4 1 through 3. Devil's Reign Villains for Hire. The Winter Soldier one-shot. The X-Men 3-issue miniseries Devil's Reign. The Spider-Man one-shot. Moon Knight number 8. Uncanny, I want to talk Pretty One Day. And then Devil's Reign Moon Knight and Devil's Reign Omega. This book has 680 pages, and that is all of the Devil's Reign event. Alright, moving forward, I'm going to be talking about spoilers. So, minor spoilers. I'm not going to go into detail as to what's happened previously, or how it happened, rather. But I have to talk about the status quo of these characters during this particular time, without going too much into in-depth detail. Okay. During this time, it is very important to note that there are two Daredevils running around. One of them is Matt Murdock, and the other one is Elektra. Matt Murdock had been sent to prison. I'm not going to go into details as to why he's been sent to prison, but he's finally out, and he's running around as Daredevil. And during this time, it's also important to note that Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin, is the mayor of New York. Now, if you want to know how that happened, that can all be found through the Secret Empire event and also the Charles Soule run of Daredevil. And it's also important to note that Wilson Fisk does not remember the identity of Daredevil. If you've read comics for a long time and you've been out of the loop and you come back to this, you're probably wondering, wait a minute, Wilson Fisk knew who Daredevil was. He knew that Daredevil was Matt Murdock. When did all this happen? Again, in the pages of Charles Soule's Daredevil, that can be found. And last but not least, the last thing you need to know before reading this run is that Mike Murdock is Matt Murdock's brother during this run. That's right. Mike Murdock, this alter ego that Matt Murdock created all the way back in the 60s to fool everybody into thinking that he was not Daredevil, is a real brother here. He's a physical brother. He is real. And if you want to find out how all that happened, Charles Soule, Inhumans, the reader. That's all I will say. All right, now that you know what's going on, or at least the status quo of these people, and there is a new Kingpin, by the way, in New York. All right, so what's happening? Well, what's happening is that Kingpin approaches Daredevil, and he approaches him with something that he found inside of one of his safes. And he's like, this is very important. This holds your secret identity, but it's blank. Who the hell are you, and why can I not remember? And Daredevil, in a very Daredevilish way, just taunts him. He's like, you'll never find out, you idiot, something along those lines. So Mayor Fisk is of New York City, to get back at Daredevil, decides to put a anti-superhero act in force. So he is fully outlawing vigilantism. Is that a word? Vigilantism? Yeah, sure. Vigilantism. He's outlawing vigilantes, superheroes, in New York. So in the city limits, no more superheroes. And you may be rolling your eyes going, we've seen this before with Civil War. And yes, us older folks also remember the Mutant Registration Act. But here recently they did do the, the Outlaw Act with the kids. But now it's every vigilante, every superhero. So what he does is he forms himself a new team of Thunderbolts. And their story can be found in the pages of the Villains for Hire. That's what it is. So this particular group, actually, let's go back, of these new Thunderbolts, of course, they're ex-villains, but not the worst people, I guess. But this is Electro, the new Electro, Maxine. You have Agony, you have Rhino, Taskmaster, and Whiplash. And of course, all being led by U.S. Agent. So they are now kind of like his enforcers, kind of like the role that the Thunderbolts played in Civil War, where they're going after vigilantes, and their first act is to go after Moon Knight. And they're putting all these people under arrest, and they're throwing them inside of a prison. And this is something that Daredevil didn't see coming. He had no idea how fast this act would come to play. And this is actually an awesome part where Miles Morales is trying to escape these new Thunderbolts after saving somebody from a fire. And Captain America he helps Miles Morales because he's being arrested by these Thunderbolt guards, and they're like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And Captain America's like, "Dude, do you know who I am? I'm Captain America." Civil War, something very similar happened when he was on top of a plane. So the people that are outed, the people that are getting arrested, are the people that, are wearing costumes, or they are public figures, kind of like the Fantastic Four. So the Thunderbolts go into the Fantastic Four headquarters with the help of Dr. Octopus. Now, Dr. Octopus has his own spin off series. It's called the Superior Four. And that's a really interesting series. But some of them get arrested. Ben and the kids and the Human Torch escape. So it's really interesting to see like who becomes one of these enforcers, like the Thunderbolts. So you have the Shocker there arresting Darkhawk. You have Luke Cage and his family. Like, hell no, we're not putting up with this again, because they've already been through this. So somebody has to stop Wilson Fisk from going any further. Somebody has to overthrow him. This is the character of Butch that was introduced in the pages of Chip Zdarsky's run, and he has close ties to Matt's brother, Mike Murdock, who's this very similar to the way that Matt played him when he created the persona. So both of them are friends, and he plays a big part in this particular story. Actually, both of them do. This is the prison I was talking about, where the superheroes are being sent. Now, the most important thing about the storyline is that Wilson Fisk is using the Purple Man, Kilgrave here, to create a cane of sorts that will give him the ability to be able to know everything. So he wants to know everything, including the identity of not just Daredevil, but everybody maybe, and you can find out how that ends. And that's the setup of this. That's what Devil's Reign is. All the superheroes are now fighting these supervillains. That's no different than usual. However, they have to go into hiding, and how long are they going to go into hiding? So the main key players through this event are, of course, well, the people that have the one-shots, like Spider-Man and Moon Knight, but also Jessica Jones and Luke Cage and Captain America and Iron Man play a role in here. As a matter of fact, Iron Man's like, look, we've already done this. This is a bad idea. We know where this ends. People are going to get hurt. And it's also very important to note that during this time, Wilson Fisk is married too. And he's married to this young lady right there, who is, well, you can find out who she is by reading the book. But Marco Cicchetto is supplying these amazing panels. I've been a fan of his since his Punisher run with Greg Rucka. I have been following his work, and now it's amazing to see him just doing these what I consider these A-tier titles. So yes, when the characters are arrested, when these superheroes are arrested, of course, this is the Myrmidon. This is the prison right here for the superpowered criminals, including Sue Storm and Reed Richards. They are confronted by people that they put in there, so there's going to be all kinds of hell breaking loose. So that's really all I will say about this, about the pitch of the story. Now, the mapping. Can this be read as is? That's the way that I read it in trade paperback format. There is one thing, at least one thing I wish that they had put in between issues, and that is the Woman Without Fear. There's something that happens in Woman Without Fear that plays a big part in all this. Like, it's all about Elektra, right? Because I've already established that Elektra is running around as Daredevil too. But Daredevil Woman Without Fear focuses on her and just having a flashback and sets up the next story arc, which is going to be the big storyline with the hand. And then, of course, features her training with Stick. And it plays a big part in this. And I wish it had been at least in between all three issues of the miniseries, at least in between issues 5 and 6 of this. Because I know it's important to keep it towards the end, right? Because there is something that is spoiled in there, like the death of a character is spoiled in the Woman Without Fear. But I wish they had kept it like in between issues 5 and 6. I think it would have made for a better reading experience, but that's just my 2 cents. The other spin-offs, like Spider-Man or the Sinister Four, it would have been cool, but I don't know. I'm one of these. It's hard for me to say, okay, this would be easy to map, because there are several here. Let's actually go to Woman Without Fear. So this is what Woman Without Fear looks like. But actually, before we talk about that, let's talk about the Villains for Hire. So Villains for Hire is pretty much your new Thunderbolts. These are the enforcers that are putting these superheroes or vigilantes into prison. But what I was saying is, like, I find it to be a difficult task to, yes, map an event like this perfectly, because it's not like things like X-Men, whenever they have an event, or Maximum Carnage. Let's use Maximum Carnage, for example. Maximum Carnage has an easy map to follow. Part 1 is found in Web of Spider-Man, just using this as an example. Part 2 is found in Amazing. Part 3 is found in Spectacular. Part 4 is found in Adjectiveless. And then Part 5 is found in Unlimited. So that's easy. For this, it's like Devil's Reign is an event. And here's all the little miniseries that are around the event. And you can read the miniseries. I don't think you would. They are to be read by themselves. So I would at least love to have seen Woman Without Fear, and it's going to be interesting how Volume 2 is mapped too. But the way this is mapped is pretty much the trade paperbacks put together into a book. So if you want to read the main event is there. Now, I do appreciate that Omega is the very last thing that's collected in here. Omega wraps up all of the miniseries and the main storyline. It's the aftermath of what happened in Devil's Reign and what the new status quo will be for the characters of... well, no, never mind. That's too much of a spoiler, so I'm not going to say anything. But then again, like you see things like this, right? Like, if you were reading Devil's Reign, the big cliffhanger of issue 1 of Villains for Hire is U.S. Agent is like, I want to be the leader of the Thunderbolts. That's not even a cliffhanger or a big thing, because you've already read Devil's Reign issue 1, where he's already leading the team of Thunderbolts. So it doesn't really help to put that in between issues, for example. So I'm okay with things like that. But this Daredevil Woman Without Fear, I feel like should have been at least in between issues 4 and 5. The next miniseries, the next one-shot is the Spider-Man one-shot. This is another one that's, you can read it at any time. It's pretty much the fight between the Rose and Spider-Man. And there's other things that, of course, happen here. But that's practically what the main storyline is. One of my favorite ones is the Superior Four. This is the Winter Soldier. Again, it's another one-shot, can be read at any time. It doesn't really happen in between issues, and if it does, I don't know when to place it. This is an interesting one because this is the X-Men 3-issue miniseries that works as a flashback and as the, like, a current day X-Men status, which the X-Men are doing their own thing. So outlawing vigilantes in New York City doesn't really affect them unless they mess with the mutant embassy. Because, as we all know, new laws have been passed where they have immunity. All mutants have immunity, and they can always be represented by Krakoa. So what happens when the mutant embassy, well, the door is knocked on by a bunch of the Thunderbolts? Well, all hell breaks loose. There's a fight between U.S. Agent and Polaris and also Rogue. And like I said, there's a little bit of a flashback that reveals the connection between Emma Frost and the character of the Kingpin. Spider-Woman is going through her own series, and this is another one that I'm so glad a complete collection of this is coming out. This was such an underrated series, and it's so nice to see it in an oversized format. And I'm glad it's collected in here for complete's sake, but this actually follows more of her own storyline than the actual Devil's Reign issue. I mean, you've got things in here like her fighting the new Thunderbolts, and then the Thunderbolt members like Puff Adder and Coach Whip. I'm not making those names up. Moon Knight's really cool because this shows like what happens when Mark Spector gets arrested and thrown in a prison, and it shows what's going on with the Midnight mission while he's in prison. And yes, this one is really cool. I know people are probably tired of multiverses, but much like alternate realities, for me, I enjoy them. I take them for what they are, not to be taken seriously. But what this is Octavius, is gathering different autos from across the multiverse. So you have Auto Blaze, Auto Banner, and Auto Howlet to come and help him in the 616 universe. It's ridiculous, and I'm surprised it hasn't been done before. It wasn't a big storyline, kind of like we've had Spider-Verse. But That's practically it. And yes, there's some twists and turns in this one as to who the real identity is of one of these characters mainly. And then we get the aftermath. We get Devil's Reign Omega, which this is, of course, the direct market cover. And the aftermath will set up the new status quo going forward and where Matt and Elektra are heading next. And that's all I will say about that. So that's the way this is mapped. Those are some of the stories collected in here. And then let's welcome everybody back that didn't want any spoilers and talk about the back matter and, of course, the build of the book. So all the way in the back, you have the variant covers. This is the connecting covers here of Devil's Reign 1 through 6. The Inhute Glee. By the way, for people that were wondering about the double dip, like how much of this is collected in, say, Daredevil by Chip Zdarsky Omnibus Volume 2, well, that will collect Woman Without Fear 1 through 3 and Devil's Reign 1 through 6, as well as the Omega issue. So if you're keeping tabs, that's a total of 10 issues that's going to be collected in there. How that is mapped compared to this, I don't know yet. But this is the way this one is mapped. I'm making sure these don't have any spoilers. I don't think they do. I've already read it and I've already looked through here. But these are the variant covers, and of course down here are the credits. That's an awesome freaking variant cover. The one thing that is not collected in here, in case you have the Woman Without Fear trade paperback, is the Elektra 100 issue. That one is written by Innocenti. So if you're a completist and you want everything, that is not collected in this omnibus. Now let's skip a little bit through here because we can't go through each and every one. This is page art, original page art from Villains for Hire. There's a lot of those. And then this is Rafael de la Torre, who drew the Woman Without Fear. The Spider-Man one-shot here. Sketches and layouts. And original art by Federico Sabatini. And the Superior 4 3-issue miniseries, original pages in here. The Devil's Reign Omega, page 27. Making sure it's not a spoiler, it's just a flashback. And then the end sheets here. Now, let's look at the binding. 680 pages printed at the Mega Print. And this is the way it lays over, so really no gutter loss at all. Let's go back towards the beginning, though, where it counts. Here we go. The scene from issue number 2. Minimal. I mean, I don't really see that much gutter loss. Minimal gutter loss. You can almost see the sewn binding there. And that's it. That, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing this book, don't forget to check out our sponsors.
If you're in Europe and you're interested in buying these books, definitely check out Walt's Comic Shop in Berlin, Germany. They have the cheapest pre-order prices, flat shipping rate of €12 for all EU countries, emails answered within 24 hours, waltzcomicshop.com, and you can use the code nearmintcondition at checkout and get free shipping for all EU countries with your first order over €40. That's Walt's Comic Shop, your reliable source for omnis and premium collected editions in Europe. Ding!
CheapGraphicNovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget that CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content, the page count, and build of this omnibus. Let me know in the comments down below if you are picking up this omnibus, if you prefer Event Omnibus, or you only collect Event Omnis, or if you're gonna pick up the Daredevil by Chip Zdarsky Omnis. I would love to know all those comments down below. If you have any questions, leave them down below. And that's it, everybody. Don't forget to smash that like button on the way out. Stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.